Pleasure to be with you here on this Tuesday. This is a first edition, I believe, of cruising in the Cobalt. My car is a Chevy Cobalt. I'm currently out behind the annex. It's really nice out here. It's a cool vantage. But yeah, this week we're looking at our man Joel. Shout out to the Joels or Joels out there. Joel Wilson, Joel Castillo. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to Billy Joel. Shout out to Joel Osteen. A lot of awesome Joels out there. I personally know a few. So just shout out to the Joels. And you know, Joel, and it's like one of those names, the more you say it, like, because it almost sounds like you're trying to say jowl or jaw, Joel, and it just kind of like it kind of this weird feeling in your mouth when you've said it enough. But anyway, we're looking at the prophet Joel. We're going through the Old Testament with our youth. And we're looking at the prophets, and we hit Elijah, Elisha. Last week we touched on Obadiah, and these all kind of around the same time frame. And Joel, as most biblical scholars would probably agree, was around the same time. It's hard to really know. His letter doesn't really address a current king. He would have been in Judah at the time. They do believe it was probably the time around when Joash, when his grandmother was kind of the one in charge. That's kind of where they put it, just simply because there was no reference to a king. But anyway, his letter is, his word there from the Lord is powerful because it's one of the first references that we see to the coming of the day of the Lord. And he references it multiple times, and is in reference to a judgment of God's people, of foreign nations, and the purification, restoration of God's people through suffering. And he just kind of goes through that in the second and third chapters. It's a short book. It's 3 chapters. Relatively short read. I'd encourage you to read it. It's one of those that has pretty vivid imagery, and at this time there was a locust horde that was very relatable, and so you see that referenced multiple times in this book. And so Joel, why it's important, because it's one of those first talking about the coming of the Lord. And it's one of those, you get some pretty specific details in there, days cloaked in darkness, armies that conquer like consuming fire, moon turning to blood. And it's as vivid as Revelation or any other book that you would come across. But this is one of those books I think gets lost in the shuffle. One of the prophets that gets lost in the shuffle. His contemporaries are well known at the time, so it's kind of one of those, like if I asked you, hey, which one of these is a book in the Bible, which one is not, and I said Hezekiah or Joel, I mean, you would probably get a 50-50 split on Hezekiah or Joel. Like, it almost doesn't even sound like a book in the Bible. It's kind of one of those gets disregarded, I think, sometimes, but it plays an importance in signifying the coming of the day of the Lord. And so that is the importance of having a full encompassing view of Scripture, not just viewing the Old Testament as simply a history book or just something that doesn't apply to us. It does apply to us because it talks about the promise to come. So that's the importance of getting in Scripture. And Joel, there's not a whole lot that we do personally know about him, but I've been excited to kind of get in and to look at some of these guys that nobody's ever really talked about a whole lot before. And so I pray you continue to be with us. And once again, shout out to our Joels out there, or Hoels. If it's been pronounced Hoel this whole time, I'm so sorry, but I see Joel, and that's what I think. Yeah, that is what we have today. Short video, I know, but my challenge to you today is get into the book of Joel and really give it a look through, give it a study, and look at those promises that are in there. It truly is refreshing to see it throughout all the scripture, from Genesis to Revelation and everywhere in between. You see the promises of God, and we can rest assured that God is faithful, whether we are or not. God is faithful, and so rest assured in that. All right, church, y'all have a great one, and I will see y'all next week.